Welcome to the Kindness Warrior podcast. I'm Carly Riggs, your host, and this is part 2 of our aging and Down syndrome conversation. If you haven't had a chance to check out part 1, I suggest that you go back and give it a listen because in this conversation, I dig a little deeper with Down syndrome of Louisville's aging expert, Cathy Palmer, about what the other experts discussed in the session. The link for the full webinar is in the show notes for you to access if you'd like, and let's get to it. Enjoy part 2 of Aging and Down Syndrome, Positive Approach to Care.
You are listening to the Kindness Warrior podcast, a Down Syndrome of Louisville production, serving locally, sharing globally.
Okay, so I have Cathy back here. There's just so much information. I wanted to be able to continue talking about this. All of this awesome aging stuff. Mm-hmm. Cathy had some information that she wanted to share, and Miss Tipa was just so informative that we didn't get to all of it. So, do you want to?
Yeah, if I could just share a few things that I think would be really beneficial for our parents or anybody that tuned in today. One site that I did want to bring up to everybody and just let you know that it's out there is called dsc2u.org, and it is the number 2 when you're putting that in your web browser. This site is so important because, you know, I feel like there are not a lot of experts in our medical field that deal with folks with Down syndrome on a daily basis. They may see 1 or 2 come their way. But in general, you know, being a physician is hard. They're constantly learning and hopefully learning more about Down syndrome. But with DSC2U, it's a personalized care plan that you can actually take to your physician with your child, son or daughter, adult, that goes through just their lifespan.
Yeah, so like in this DSC2U, which is DSC, the number 2, and then the letter U, Down Syndrome Clinic to You, it's like a big long survey that you only have to do every once, you know, like if you want to do it once a year, if there's been changes in your child's life or adult's life, then you fill it out, right. And then this is like a printout that happens.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it's a personalized checklist of information, resources, and recommendation that you can take to your physician with you. It is generated by a computer, so just kind of keep that in mind. The checklist was not prepared or reviewed by a clinician specifically for possibly somebody with Down syndrome, but it is a team of medical experts that are nationally, you know, in their healthcare guidelines, and they know specifically about Down syndrome. And so the checklist helps establish a healthcare provider-patient relationship. And if you look down at the bottom, after this person filled out the checklist, it gives recommendations that you can take to your physician with you. So for example, this top one here where it says audiogram hearing test, it says Allison, and that, you know, that's a pretend person. Allison is due for her hearing test. And it also gives you a little link. It says more information on hearing loss and Down syndrome. And you can click on these links. It also gives you some information underneath why up to 75 of every 100 individuals with Down syndrome have hearing loss. And so it was indicated in her checklist that she did not have an audiogram within the past year. And so they do recommend that. And if you continue, it covers her eye exam, sleep studies, because we know that sleep apnea affects most of our folks. Same with thyroid function tests. And it breaks it apart into different sections. So here's a section on new or known conditions and diagnosis. It looks like Allison has possible OCD behaviors. She has dry skin, and that's something that's common in folks with Down syndrome. She has acne, seasonal allergies. It goes through her, honestly, through her whole life. Health and wellness resources on sexual development, food assistance. It also recommends nutrition for Allison, on down into even life skills, and what Allison needs to work on, like finding her doctor's phone number. It gives you, again, the resources to help you find all of these different specific life skills. So these printouts, these that you take to your physician are full of lots of great information on the person with Down syndrome, and can really help the physician. Along with this is a printout for the physician as well. Very easy to read, nothing complicated. And it says, Dear Dr. Ryan, gives the date of birth and the person that, he or she is seeing, and it gives a personalized checklist for Allison's provider. And again, goes through all of those things that the doctor may need to check for Allison, suggestions for her, again, going through her entire life history. So I feel like DSC to you, again, it's the number 2, is very important for our folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And this service right now is not free to the user, but you pay for it, probably once a year. I think you can get a subscription, but if you are a Down Syndrome of Louisville family that's listening to this, we do have coupon codes, so you can reach out and get, I think it's $10 off of the service. But it's definitely, especially if you, I feel like it's especially important for adult families, because a lot of our, once you're done with your pediatrician, sometimes you go to this, a new general practitioner that might not have much experience with individuals with Down syndrome. And this is just a really good guide for them, to, for you to say, these are all the things I want you to check on. So again, that's DSC2U, and the 2 is a number and the U is a letter. And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
And they are trying to get it covered by insurance.
Yeah, in some states it is covered by insurance. It's just not covered in Indiana or Kentucky right now, if you do live in this area. That's a great resource, Miss Cathy. Thank you.
Yeah, super, super helpful, I think, for our folks and our families. Also wanted to share, and this happens to be through the National Down Syndrome Society. So the website for that is N as in Nancy, D as in David, S as in Sally, and S as in Sam, ndss.org. If you go onto their website, and we are affiliated with NDSS through Down Syndrome of Louisville. What this is the Alzheimer's disease and Down syndrome practical guidebook for caregivers. So we know our caregivers are always looking for information and ways to help their loved one with with Alzheimer's. So the guidebook is a great resource. You can see here in the table of contents that it covers just about everything. There's an explanation for. And something that I wanted to point out is, and of course, I'm still learning myself, what is the connection between Down syndrome and Alzheimer's disease? And, basically it's a buildup of proteins, abnormal proteins on that 21st chromosome that builds up plaques and tangles along the way. And so Alzheimer's disease and Down syndrome share a unique genetic connection, which makes our folks more prevalent for developing.
So that's why there's
dementia.
Such a high percentage of individuals with Down syndrome, because that plaque buildup and tangles is on the extra chromosome.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. So, something that I'm still researching about, but it's just very interesting. Our folks, about 80% of our folks will end up developing aging signs.
What did you say? 80%?
But that doesn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes, it's very high because of that, because of trisomy 21.
Because of that extra chromosome. Well, I also know that I mean, the Down syndrome community is helping the research of Alzheimer's. Like, just, it's incredible how much that our members are truly helping the scientific world figure things out of why it's happening, and and are kind of leading the way as far as, like, these research facilities, and they're learning so much because of individuals with Down syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see here. There was one other thing that you had mentioned earlier, Carly, in our podcast about U of K and our relationship with U of K.
Which is University of Kentucky, for anyone who doesn't,
right,
who's listening from somewhere else.
Talk a little bit about that while I pull up the site, would you, please?
Sure. So University of Kentucky has, I don't know how many years the program has been happening, but they have been researching the correlation between Down syndrome and Alzheimer's for many years. And so because we are so close to UK here in Louisville, many of our Louisville members are a part of this research study. And so as early as 25, they're registering to be a part of this research study. And so if anyone's listening and you are interested in putting your son or daughter or loved one in this research program, they could really help, make a difference.
Yeah. So, right. Yeah. I've pulled up their website, and it is the UK Sanders Brown Aging Center. It's Aging and Down Syndrome Research Study, and you can go on their website that we are involved in and get more information on that. And so, I'm just reading right off the website for those of you listening. Researchers at U of K are seeking to understand how aging and Down syndrome may affect a person's memory and thinking as they get older. The goals of the project are to follow neurological learning and memory changes in adults with Down syndrome as they age, to examine brain changes using MRIs, and to measure blood biomarkers. And so, as Carly mentioned, persons with Down syndrome, age 25 and older, with or without signs of Alzheimer's disease.
So yeah, that's a huge one. They don't have to be showing signs. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And why should you join? Join because you are helping to change the difference in the lives of folks with Down syndrome. You're allowing us to, UK to do research and put that out there for folks. A great website, and I'm just clicking on a link that's on the actual page that I pulled up, and it's under the Sanders Brown Center on Aging through UK, University of Kentucky. It goes through the study with you. On their resources page, you can see, here we are, Down syndrome of Louisville is part of the research. And again, up at the top, we went through that DS Connect, the Down syndrome registry. So lots of good resources that they also offer on their
I'll be sure
sites.
to put all of these in the show notes as well. And when we pop up a blog about, with this Zoom call, this recorded Zoom call, I'll be sure to put all of these links in there, so we've got them all. So I'm very curious about the gems, and we covered them a tiny bit with Miss Teepa, but can you explain to me? So it's instead of saying like early onset, we're saying a gem instead of saying early onset Alzheimer's or late Alzheimer's, or it's kind of almost in the same way that, the autism is on a spectrum, so is dementia and Alzheimer's. And instead of saying low functioning, high functioning, because we don't want to say that anymore, it's more we refer to the different, in quotes, stages of dementia and Alzheimer's with these gem colors. Is that right? Am I grasping that? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly right, Carly. Gone are the days where we label things, like you said, just like we don't call our folks a person with Downs. That's a no-no. They have Down syndrome, but that doesn't make them who they are, So that's the same thing with Teepa's gems. She goes through a series of gems. They're sparkly, they're shiny. Again, we want to work with our folks with what they have left in them. We want to make that shine. We want to make them bright. We want to make them feel good about the rest of the life that they have. And so Teepa has created her gems, as she was talking about earlier in the podcast, and what those gems, what the characteristics of each of those gems are related to somebody with Alzheimer's. And she takes you through those in lots of description. And through my training with Beth Tesfaye, we had to do a lot of role play with those gems, because it can be challenging to decipher where somebody is, on that chart. But gems is a great way of just making it, I hate to say sound better.
Of being aware, but it's almost like focusing on the positive rather than the negative. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the positive approach to care. It was all on a hand. So she was holding up her hand and she was pointing to her fingers, and essentially she was saying, we don't want to use two fingers. We want it to be the entire hand, and they were representing all these amazing things. And when we work together, then it works,
Right. Yeah.
So I might even...
these three fingers, your thumb and your two first fingers, those are your skill fingers. As you're picking and, buttoning, zipping, feeding yourself, all of those different skills that you use with these three fingers. And then these are your, here we go, your last two are your strength and where your strength comes from. Okay. So, and again, like she was saying, one of her representations was, we want to be side by side. We want to work together, sometimes helping each other. And
so we're crossing our fingers, one person might be helping the other, and then she would switch her fingers, and, it might be that they're helping you, you're helping them.
Right. One good example of this was, on YouTube, on my website for Positive Approach to Care, I do an example where I'm helping somebody feed themselves. And again, you're using those skill fingers, but I'm also holding that person's hand. Their hand is actually on top of mine, because that's the approach. You want them to be on top, feeling like they're still in control of their life. And you're assisting and you're helping, and you're just making that process easier for them, but you're still giving them their independence and that sense of accomplishment in life. And they're still living, and we want to make that shine. We want that to come through.
Something that keeps coming up anytime that I hear, we a lot of times in education you hear hand over hand, but with Teepa she says hand under hand, because it gives the person the control and the support. But I have like a visceral physical memory from my childhood, and it comes up all the time. I don't know but especially when that phrase is used, the hand under hand, of my dad teaching me how to play baseball when I was young. I mean, maybe 3, maybe 4, and I'm holding the bat, or he's holding the bat, but my hands were on top of his hands, and I can physically feel him I'm trying to show you and explain at the same time, but him choking the bat, that how baseball players choke the bat. I can physically feel him doing that, and then getting ready to swing or whatever, and then the actual feeling of him, but it was me swinging that bat. And anytime I see a dad or whoever teaching a kid how to play baseball, or I'll see my dad teaching another one of our little family members how to play baseball, I have that physical memory. I know exactly what that feels like, so Anyway, I never took to baseball, but somehow I know how, when I'm watching, I know what that feels like. So anyway, it is very important to have, like, obviously I understand how that can make you feel like you're doing
empowered.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm sure you were so proud of yourself, even though Dad was assisting, you were still completing the motion and doing it with him. And it just makes you feel so proud of yourself in that moment. So, and that's what we want to do with our folks.
Yeah.
And, whether they have Alzheimer's or not, I mean, the PAC program is excellent for anybody. Typical people like you and I aging as well.
Yes.
I mean, so I think it's really important to put that out there as well, that, it's not just for a certain community.
Right.
Or population.
Or even just, some of the tips that I hear, I hear from her or from you when you're training us. It's like, this is not just for, the aging population, but also, I mean, these tips are really amazing for our younger members who have Down syndrome. And, I mean, even just the mindset of, if we're seeing someone have a behavior, don't just, get mad and kick them out of class or whatever. I mean, no one's been doing that, but I'm saying, like, okay, let's really look at this, and why do we think that this person is behaving this way? What can I do to make sure, maybe they need something to be one-on-one. Maybe it's loud in the room. Maybe, maybe it's too busy. There's too much going on, virtually. Maybe there's too much going on in the background. Maybe I need to take this picture off the wall. Maybe it's too noisy. Maybe their friend's microphone is buzzing. Like, it could be so many things, but instead of getting mad or, like, reacting to that, then let's see what we can do to help this person. And that's really what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah. And for teachers that are, might be struggling with someone in NTI, or which is non-traditional instruction, same kind of thing, or parents who might be struggling with virtual school, or even when school is in session, just kind of taking a step back and thinking about, okay, what's really going on here. So I mean,
it really is best practice for everybody, and I hope that as I age, there will be somebody in my life that can use these practices and that treat me with respect and give me my self-dignity. And honor, the things that I can still do independently.
Yes.
And assist me with that, because that's the kind of life I want.
Right. What are your tips on fantasy world? That's something that happens a lot with our members, that daydreaming is confused with things that are real and not real. And I know that sometimes with dementia or Alzheimer's, like, someone will think that you're the queen, or, like, whatever it may be. What are the tips about that?
The tips are join them. Join them, honestly. If it's not hurting them in any way, if it's not interfering with their life in general and their day-to-day, structure or, schedule of their day, join them. They appreciate that, instead of trying to change them and tell them that, hey, that's not real. Like, why are you talking that way? Stop.
We've got a member who tells everyone that I'm her sister. And with her, I almost just am like, yeah, sister. And then I just make sure that, later on, I'm like, by the way, we're not really sisters. Because then I'll start, hearing reports back because I'm the sister. Like, I'm not legally her sister. But
yeah. And I think, because earlier in the podcast you had asked about some of that. And I think it's just all going back to educating everybody, and making everybody aware. And, our folks are smarter than you think. They know you're not her sister. But it's just the way that you react to that person and how you carry yourself and how you can support that person through that situation is what makes the difference. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
But Carly, I've had a great time.
Yay, thank you so much.
Yeah, we've got lots of good information to share, and I can't wait, to put it out there for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll have you back very soon to talk about some of the other things that you're an expert on. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Thank you, Carly.
This has been the Kindness Warrior Podcast, a Down Syndrome of Louisville production. To learn more about Down Syndrome of Louisville, visit our website, downsyndromeoflouisville.org. If you have questions or ideas, you can email us at kindnesswarriorpod@dsoflou.org. The music for this episode was written and performed by Alex Stotts and Owen Eiler. The Kindness Warrior Podcast is produced and edited by Ethan Holstein, produced and hosted by Carly Riggs. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.